Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the first book in the Witcher series. It's called The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. Forgive me if I butchered that name. Polish is not my first language. It's not any of the languages that I speak. Anyway, I was introduced to The Witcher through video games. I initially heard about The Witcher when the video games were gaining popularity and everything, and I started playing the second Witcher game, I think it was. Started playing it, but then realized that I wanted to go back and play the first Witcher game. So I started playing that one. I don't remember, it's sometime in there that I realized that, or found out that The Witcher was based on a series of books that had been adapted to the video games. And in fact, the opening cutscene for The Witcher is actually the first story in The Last Wish. So, Geralt of Rivia is the Witcher. He is a monster hunter, a mutant. In order to be who he is, he went through training in monster hunting, and he has white hair. The pupils of his eyes are different than normal people. He goes around as a mercenary, not in the sense of fighting for anybody, but he does fight for pay, usually against monsters. One of the nice things about Geralt of Rivia and the Witcher stories is not that he is indiscriminate about the destruction of monsters. He's very measured in his approach. If a monster is merely inconveniencing humans, and the monster is not actively attacking or destroying humans, he won't just go out and kill the monster. He will try to find some way to either drive the monster off, reason with it. He realizes obviously that some monsters cannot be reasoned with, and they don't have that level of intelligence. But for the monsters that do have that level of intelligence, he will take the time to figure that out. It's interesting in the video games that the monsters, you do have the option to kill everything that moves, basically. And so that is kind of a departure from the character that Geralt actually is in the stories. Anyway, The Last Wish, as I said, it's the first book in the Witcher series, but it doesn't have really an overarching narrative. It's not like there is a continuous thread of a story that runs through. I mean, there kind of is, but it's more shown as separate short stories. So each of the chapters in the book is basically a separate incident in Geralt's life. As I said, the first the first story in the book, The Last Wish, is actually the opening cutscene for the first Witcher game. So King Foltest of Temeria, he has a problem with his daughter. And I don't want to go too much into detail because the nature of how he conceived that daughter is not necessarily appropriate for YouTube. Anyway, his daughter is born as a Striga. Now, a Striga is a monster, female demons from Slavic mythology, similar to a vampire, predominantly found in Polish and Silesian folklore. Anyway, so the king is adamant that no one kill his daughter. He wants her cured of this curse. And the curse was levied against his daughter because of her manner of conception. If you're curious about that, go read the book. Anyway, in order to capture her, cure her, Geralt does several things. He gets confronted by a certain noble, who he then uses this noble as bait. Now, normally when you hear something like that, you're thinking, "Ugh, this guy is using a person as bait in this trap." Well, the guy was pretty despicable. He wanted Geralt to, instead of breaking the curse, he wanted to be able to use the Striga to dethrone the king. And Geralt is having none of that. He'd much rather break the girl's curse than kill her or anything like that. And so he does end up being able to cure the girl to a certain extent, and is rewarded by the king. Whether or not it's permanent or completely effective, you don't really get into that, at least not at this point. Then it jumps to another story where it's actually a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, where the Beast was cursed to be in his monstrous form until true love's kiss kind of thing, or kiss from a woman. But the thing is he's been in his beast form for so long, he's forgotten the curse and forgotten how to break it, and he actually kind of doesn't care at this point. And he's been very generous with his funds at this point. There was a rumor. Excuse me. There was a rumor that he was living out in this old mansion that is magical and does what he wants, and he has girls from the village. They come and live with him for a while, and when they go back to their parents, he gives them money for a dowry. And so he's been very generous, and these women periodically come, stay at his mansion for a while, and then leave and live out the rest of their lives. So it's an interesting take on the Beauty and the Beast. The Beauty and the Beast story. In another story, he goes to a town, and he has a monster that he's killed, and he wants to claim the bounty for it, but he ends up being directed to this wizard's house whom he has met before, and the wizard tries to get him to be his bodyguard because he's convinced that he is target for an assassination attempt. Geralt refuses, and then meets the assassins who are there to destroy the wizard. And this story is about how Geralt became known as the Butcher of Blaviken. Again, there's another one where he goes to a castle, and he's invited there by the queen, and it's ostensibly to attend the betrothal celebration of the princess. And there was an arrangement for the princess to marry this person. It's I'm trying to remember. This is again another adaptation of a fairy tale, where the king promises to give something to someone who rescued him, and the terms of the trying to remember the basically the terms of the reward for the rescuer were, you must give me the first thing you see upon returning home. In the old tale, the king knew that what would be waiting for him at home would be his dog, and instead, when he gets home, the person waiting for him is actually the princess, and so he has to agree to give this his daughter to his rescuer. But his rescuer is basically a monster, and so this monster has claim on marrying the princess, and the queen wants to prevent this, and Geralt does get involved, but not the way you would think. At this point, Geralt does invoke what's called the Law of Surprise, which is basically the same law that was used at the beginning that started all this, where the princess was then betrothed to the monster. Geralt then, in another story, we meet Geralt's friend Dandelion, who is a troubadour, wandering minstrel, bard, etc. And they do end up finding the source of some tales from the villagers that they believe this devil is haunting their lands. The situation then ends up involving the elves that live in the area, the villagers, and this devil that turns out to be very, very strong. And Geralt does manage to, well, I shouldn't say Geralt manages to diffuse the situation, because at this point it's very much Deus Ex Machina, where someone else with much more power and authority comes in and irons out the situation. The last two stories, one is The Last Wish, where a genie comes out of a bottle, and it talks about the three wishes that Geralt receives for having freed this imprisoned genie. The wishes are not, again, it's an interesting retelling of the three wishes from the genie in the bottle, because one, Geralt doesn't realize that he is getting the wishes, and it isn't until later that he realizes that the genie was fulfilling his wishes. In the last one, Geralt is stopped by some soldiers, and Geralt has to use his intelligence to get out of a situation that has a very low probability of success. And it's interesting the way that he does rig or does outsmart the soldiers who have stopped him. And anyway, I very much enjoyed The Last Wish. I have more. I have more books. I haven't finished reading the Witcher series. I have read the next book in the series, and I think I have 2 more after that. But anyway, the writing was well done. The stories were interesting. As I said, I have read and seen the Beauty and the Beast story played out in film and in other books over the years. And I the Last Wish, not The Last Wish, it's called A Question of Price. I have heard that legend before, but it was an interesting retelling of these particular stories, and it was interesting to me, the interactions between the characters and the different ways that Andrzej had written those interactions. So highly interesting, very good read, very well done, and I have read books that have been translated from other languages. On this channel, I have reviewed Vampire Hunter D, Journey to the West, The Stranger by Max Frey, the Simoquin Prophecies. Those were all written by people whose... I think the Simoquin Prophecies may have been written, even though it was written by someone who English probably wasn't their first language. It may have been written in English originally and not translated. I'd have to check on that one. But I have read other books that have been translated from other languages into English, and the translation on this one was very well done. I have not always felt that the translation was done very well. For instance, with Vampire Hunter D, I like the stories, I like the books. I don't think that the translation is always top-notch. So there is that. Anyway, I highly recommend The Last Wish. It's a great starting point if you're wanting to get into the Witcher series. It introduces you to Geralt of Rivia and the environment, the world in which he lives, and kind of gives you an idea of who he is as a character, especially when you're thinking, well, this guy goes and kills monsters. Yes, he does. But at the same time, he employs a measured approach to monster fighting. He is not the guy who goes out and just slaughters the monster. If the monster is reasonable and willing to talk, so is Geralt. If the monster is unreasonable and not willing to talk, then Geralt will take other actions to accomplish his means and his ends. If you have questions or comments, leave them down below. Turn on the bell to get notifications, and please like and subscribe. And as always, enjoy what you're reading.